It is worth the while, is it not, to gather for worship here each Sunday? To be together in community for mutual support, to offer healing and helping hands to one another, to be comforted in sorrow, to be lifted in and with joy, to be inspired to do the work of peacemaking and justice making, to learn to love better. It is worth the while more than ever on this old ship Pride Sunday as we rise with love, love stronger, always stronger than hate, love always overcoming hate. Yes, worth the while to gather with love in and from, with friends gathered far and near, in and from this ancient house of love and worship on this land sacred to the Massachusetts people. It is more than worth the while to gather once again. Amen. Chalice lighter this morning is our incoming president of our congregation, making the grand entrance up the center aisle, Diane Jordan. Thank you, Diane. Take your time. It's not so grand.
Good morning. I had the good fortune this week to see Paul McCartney. First time ever, so it was so exciting. And on the ride into Boston, I received notice that Ken had received several disturbing calls from someone who truly doesn't know Ken, doesn't know who we are, what we're about, what we do, or anything about Unitarian Universalism. My excitement about the concert was now mixed with concern and sadness, and at the same time, knowing the strength of our community. It did not take long for the board, the deacons, and the Pride Committee to rally in support of Ken, who we are, what we're about, what we do, and our commitment as Unitarian Universalists. With great love and conviction, today we'll joyously have our Pride Day celebration, supporting each other and choosing to side with love. I light this chalice with everyone here and there, all included. Now, Paul McCartney also played in a band called the Beatles. I think you've heard of them. And if you could say these words with me from one of their songs, As the Chalice is Lit. And John sang these words, not Paul. And he says, it's easy. All you need is love. Love is all you need.
All you need is love. Love is all you need. Da, 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 da. Thank you, Diane. Thank you so much. We're going to sing one of our old hymns, Morning So Fair to See, number 42. May it ground us in the beauty of this world, ground us in the beauty of this morning. May it ground us. Morning So Fair to See, number 42.
Morning so fair to see.
family first joined a Unitarian just before the merger, Unitarian Church, 60 or so years ago, all we had were the old hymns, and that was one of them, which just resonates for me, as it may for some of you who've been around for a while, but it's a beautiful old hymn and good message. Well, good morning and welcome. My name is Reverend Ken Reed Brown. My pronouns are he and him and his. It's good to see everybody. Good to be together. Good to see old timers and newcomers alike. If you are visiting this morning or new among us and would like to stand and tell us who you are, we could then offer you a warmer welcome. Not a requirement, but an invitation. Any newcomers or visitors would like to stand? Yes.
My name is Jeff. I'm up here from Virginia, visiting my sister. And we'll be here another week or so.
Right, Jack from Virginia, visiting your sister. Welcome. Good to have you with us today.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm Jenny Kahane. I grew up in Canton, but moved to now, and it's great to be back for one of your times here. I actually was born when we started 35 years ago tomorrow.
Well, happy birthday, Jenny. Oh, goodness. Jenny returning home to Hingham and to Old Ship. Jenny Kahane. Wonderful to see you. Yeah, thanks for being here. Yes.
My name is Brian Madden. I'm visiting. I'm the new husband of Jen Mitchell, the daughter of Jen and Brian Mitchell.
Well, and happy. And by new, you mean like a week, right? Yes. Well, congratulations, Jen. Great to have you here. And tell me your name again. Brian. Wonderful. And congratulations on your wedding. Well, it's good to see. Oh, please, go ahead, Don.
Good afternoon. My name is Don Zins, and I'm from Hingham, and I recently came here from the Provincetown Union Church, and now I'm going to be coming here. And I'm proud to have my mom here today and my best friend Vincent from Provincetown, Miami.
Wonderful, Don. Back here from Provincetown and with your mom, Dorothy, with your friend Vincent. Good to have you all here this morning, and we hope for many mornings to come. Yes. Thank you, Gary. Here with your sister Janet Asnes, our dear about to depart president, but not to depart from us. And thank you for being here in support of us and our town. Thank you. Well, we're delighted to have everybody here, newcomers, old timers. Whether you're new or old, if you want to learn more about us, just go onto our website, oldshipchurch.org. Again, welcome. A couple of announcements. At noon today, as I probably don't need to tell most of you, our Pride Day celebration begins. We're all set up out there. There will be music, tie-dye, refreshments. There's popcorn and snow cones and all kinds of things. So, homemade pie, I'm told. Who made it? All right, Diane. Homemade pie. It's got to be good. A note about the music today. Christopher tells me, and now we're telling all of you, all of the living composers of today's music are part of the LGBTQ community. And those who are non-living, whose past historians say that at the very least they were, as Christopher puts it, not straight. So in celebration of Pride Day, we have this wonderful music from wonderful composers. Just a couple of announcements coming up. As most of you know, at 3 o'clock next Saturday, coming up, is a celebration of our 35 years together of shared ministry. I look forward to seeing you there. And then next Sunday, the day after, our flower communion service. So please bring a flower. If you forget, there will be extras, but try to remember to bring a flower to contribute to our flower communion bouquet. Our final so-called regular service of the year, and of course my final service with you preaching from the Old Ship pulpit. One other announcement, Karen Churchill, the chair of Worship and Music Committee, says we still need, because we keep going with worship, our summer services, we still need some volunteers to lead a summer service or two. So please contact Karen. I don't think she's here today, but most of you know her. Contact me if you don't know how to reach Karen, if you'd like to say a few words at a summer service. And finally, a reminder, there is a basket And as you leave and as you come in for food, we know that some of us, we can pay the higher prices today. For some, it's a real stretch. They're hungry people, and we can help feed them with our food donations. You can also bring to the parish house during the week, 9 to 1. Song for all ages. I'm playing the banjo most weeks these days, so maybe you won't miss it so much. Enough already. Wonderful New Yorker cartoon. Got a picture of a cat playing a banjo, and the woman, one assumes partner in the house, says, "The cat has got to go." Anyway, this old song, originally published in 1962 as One Man's Hands, now it's Just My Hands, by Pete Seeger and Alex Comfort. It still applies. When someone targets you, and some of you know this personally, with hateful language, you can feel alone. But pretty soon, almost always, other voices arise in support with love. All you need is love, as Diane reminded us. We've experienced that this week. Your love, the love of members of our wider community. It's been extraordinary, actually. We are not alone here at Old Ship. We've received messages of love from our neighboring faith communities, beginning with our Baptist friends across the street. Gary Ludwig, just in addition to an email I received, sent a beautiful letter that he'd sent to his congregation. And all the way up the street, there are other congregations with rainbow flags. They've sent messages. There are congregations without rainbow flags. We've heard from South Shore Baptist Church, not known as a liberal bastion, but I received a wonderful, beautiful email from their minister in support of us. Historical Society, Hingham Unity Council, and Hingham's Finest in Blue, who made sure, even though they couldn't manage a detail, they called the Plymouth County Sheriff, and he's here with us today. Well, this old song by Pete Seeger and Alex Comfort has some new lyrics for today. A mixture of old and new lyrics speaks to the power of many voices, many hands, many hearts, rising for justice, for peace, for love. I'm going to invite you to sing along when those times come to sing along. I think many of you know it, but you'll figure it out. Get the hang of it. Just my hand can't tear prison down. Just your hand can't tear prison down. Here's the part that repeats every time. But if 2 and 2 and 50 make a million, we'll see that day come round. We'll see that day come round. See. Just my hands can't build a bridge of peace. Just your hands can sing that. Just your hands can't build a bridge of peace. But if 2 and 2 and 50 make a million, we'll see that day come round. We'll see that day come round. Just my hands can't heal the planet Earth. Just your hands. Just your hands can heal the planet Earth. But if 2 and 50 make a million, we'll see that day come round. We'll see that day come round. Just my voice can't shout to make them heal. Just your voice. Just your voice can shout to make them heal. But if 2 and 50 make a million, we'll see that day come round. We'll see that day come round. Just my hands can't hang all the rainbow flags. Just your hands. Just your hands can't hang all the rainbow flags. But if 2 and 50 make a million, You sounded beautiful. You are beautiful. Another way that we manifest our connections in community is each Sunday lighting our candles of joy, sorrow, and concern. The first candle for the people of Ukraine and all those affected now globally through the repercussions. A candle for peace, a candle for peace. The second candle, as some of you heard through our email on Friday, is for Dick Norton. Dick and Joanne were members of our congregation for decades, moved to New Hampshire 20 years ago. Dick had declined in a number of ways over recent years with Joanne's beautiful support. They were still living in their apartment. After a brief illness this week, Dick died on Friday morning. It was the day of their 66th wedding anniversary. Dick was one of our deacons. He was a physician. If you weren't his patient, you would have wanted to be. Sign me up. He was the kindest, most compassionate man that many of us knew. And that's a high bar in this congregation. We light a candle of remembrance for Dick, prayers for Joanne and all their family, their now quite large family of children and grandchildren. And we share a moment of quiet, imagining Dick and Joanne in one of the front pews as they sat every week. Those who are gone are never truly gone. Dick, his message, his presence lives in our hearts, always, those of us who knew him, most especially. The third candle was requested by Ellie and Clayton Handelman, who are not here. It's a candle of celebration for themselves. They're in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, celebrating their 30th wedding anniversary, which will be tomorrow. So a candle of congratulations to Ellie and Clayton. I kind of hope they're not tuning in this morning, but are doing more enjoyable things outside and having fun on their anniversary. But if you are here, Ellie and Clayton, congratulations. I invite additional sharing of joy, sorrow, or concern, and I'll light a candle as you speak. Janice. Well, congratulations on your anniversary, Janice and Brian. So candle of joy for you and for Jen and Brian as well. Happy anniversary and happy, 1 week anniversary to Jen and Brian. 3 already. Time passes so fast. Anyone else in the room? Abby. Arrested the protesters? Wonderful. Wow. So a candle of sorrow for the interruption, almost violent interruption of a pride festival in Idaho, and the quick and prompt and appropriate response of the police. Thank you, Abby. Thank you. Yes, Barbara? Yes. Well, congratulations, your grandson's Eagle Scout award, and I've been neglecting to actually light the candles, so I'll do that. For anniversaries, for Pride in Idaho, and for your grandson's Eagle Scout achievement. Candles can hold more. Anyone else here? Yes, Pat. Thank you, Pat. Candle to celebrate our being here because we stand for what we stand for, as you put it. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Rebecca. These are friends, Rebecca? Yeah, blessings on two friends of yours who have recently passed. May they be at peace. Thank you. Yes, Derek. Candle for common sense, Derek, when it comes to gun laws. May there be, finally, sooner than later, common sense. Thank you. Yes. Well, thank you for your mom, Jean, getting married next week. We wish her all the best. Thank you. Yes, Kate. Oh. Hmm. Thank you, Caitlin. A candle inviting prayers for your Aunt Deborah Menzies after major stroke and many months of rehab ahead. We send her our prayers. Daveline, are there any joys, sorrows, or concerns online?
Yes, Ken. First of all, Karen has asked that we light a candle for broken hearts everywhere. May they be mended. Charlotte has asked for a candle of support for her friend Mary, whose 97-year-old sister is in the final phase of her life. And I would like to light a candle to honor all of those who marched across the country yesterday for gun reform, organized by March for Our Lives, which is the students in Parkland, Florida, who organized themselves after that particular school shooting. So blessings to all those people who were able to march.
Thank you, Daveline. These candles burn for all of those, and they burn as well for any joys, sorrows, or concerns deeply felt among us this day, though they've remained unspoken among us. Show us how to love. And isn't that why we're here? Then we enter a time of meditation and prayer, and then gathered silence. Finding a quiet place within, and with each breath, a deeper quiet. With each breath, a deeper quiet, deeper quiet. Still point. And from this quiet place, it's there. It's there. From this quiet place, we notice our yearnings, our hopes, our prayers, call them what you will, rise. For peace, for peace, for freedom and justice, for more love to overcome hate, for ever deeper compassion. Compassion first for those most directly and deeply harmed by hate, and yes, compassion for those who hate, that their pain might be healed, that they might turn to love. On this Old Ship's Pride Day, in this month of Pride, prayers especially, hopes, yearnings for the well-being of our LGBTQ siblings, friends, that their equal worth and dignity be as respected as anyone's. All of us are one in love. May we all side with love. Our prayers are that we side more deeply with love as allies always. As we, during this time of quiet, hold one another in our hearts, holding those who've expressed a sorrow or concern or grief this morning, lifted by those who've expressed a joy. May we feel our deeper connection in this time of renewing silence. First reading this morning will be shared by Pat Bianco. Thank you, Pat.
Our first reading this morning is chapter 11 of the Tao Te Ching, translated by Ursula Le Guin. Before I begin, I'd like you to envision a bicycle wheel facing you. 30 spokes meet in the hub. Where the wheel isn't is where it's useful. Hollowed out, clay makes a pot. Where the pot is not is where it's useful. Cut out doors and windows to make a room. Where the room isn't, there's room for you. So the point in what is in the use of what isn't. Here ends the reading.
Thank you, Pat. Our morning offering will now be invited. This morning, as those of you who are in the meeting house, as you leave, there are baskets at either exit for the offering. Make sure you put your offering in the offering basket, not the mask basket, but it'll all be found eventually. For anyone who's online or for all of us later on, your offering can be, for all the ministries of our congregation, can be made through the drop menu on our donate, the donate button on our oldshipchurch.org website. In advance, we thank you for your generosity and support of all that we do and strive to do here at Old Ship, our morning offering and our offertory. Our second reading, which Elizabeth Torrey will share, come on up, Elizabeth, to be of use, was read, to the best of my recollection, at my installation as your minister, read by Jane Zimmerman, lo, these many years ago. Beautiful poem, and appreciate your reading it today, Elizabeth.
Our second reading this morning is To Be of Use by Marge Piercy. The people I love the best jump into work head first, without dallying in the shallows, and swim off with sure strokes almost out of sight. They seem to become natives of that element, the black, sleek heads of seals bouncing like half-submerged balls. I love people who harness themselves, an ox to a heavy cart, who pull like water buffalo with massive patience, who strain in the mud and the muck to move things forward, who do what has to be done again and again, again and again. I want to be with people who submerge in the task, who go into the fields to harvest and work in a row and pass the bags along, who are not parlor generals, but move in a common rhythm, when the food must come in or the fire be put out. The work of the world is common as mud. Botched, it smears the hands, crumbles to dust. But the thing worth doing well done has a shape that satisfies, clean and evident. Greek amphoras for wine or oil, Hopi vases that held corn are put in museums, but you know they were made to be used. The pitcher cries for water to carry and a person for work that is real. Here ends the reading.
Thank you, Elizabeth. That reading is about the sort of people that you are, that I've had the privilege to hang out with for the last 35 years. Thank you again, Elizabeth. The hymn is number 1 in your gray hymn books. I chose this a week or two ago, actually, before all that has gone on this past week, as a hymn of hope for your future, for our future. It seems to apply all the more today. May nothing evil cross this door. Number 1 in our hymn books. Some things you just can't plan. This morning at men's breakfast, Rich Elliott shared, no planning with me, one of my favorite little couple of sentences, this from E.B. White, where he said, and now I might be paraphrasing a little bit, he said, E.B. White, I'm torn between a desire to save the world and a desire to savor the world when I arise each morning. This makes it hard to plan the day. Well, you'll hear echoes of this throughout my much of what I'm having to say this morning. The phrase that has given me my sermon title, Worth the While, comes from the writing of good old Henry David Thoreau. I hadn't been much aware of this phrase until reading an essay by a Thoreau scholar, Jeff Wisner, in a recently published book, Now Comes Good Sailing, which was thought to be among Thoreau's final words, by the way. Now comes good sailing, writers reflect on Henry David Thoreau. Wisner shares occurrences of this phrase, worth the while, from Walden, but also many more from the journal that Thoreau kept for most of his adult life. And Wisner notes importantly that the ideas, experiences, projects that Thoreau deems to be worth the while are, in Wisner's words, are the things whose value measures up to the amount of life they cost. The things whose value measure up to the amount of life they cost. That's what's worth the while. Ponder that for a moment, or take it with you today. For yourself in your own life, what sorts of things are and have been and imagine will be worth the while for you in terms of the amount of life they cost? As you're pondering, here are a few things that Thoreau affirmed in his journal or in Walden that were worth the while for him. I love imagining him writing these things. It would be worth the while to tell why a swamp pleases us, what kind pleases us, also what weather, etc., he says, etc. Analyze our impressions, why the moaning of the storm gives me pleasure. Elsewhere he wrote, it might be worth the while, where possible, to flood a cranberry meadow as soon as they are ripe and before the frosts, and so preserve them plump and sound till spring. And Wisner notes that this is exactly what then began to happen. And then Wisner says that he was frustrated at that Thoreau was frustrated at going to a menagerie, a kind of a zoo, and finding no useful information about the animals displayed. So Thoreau commented in his journal after this, would it not be worth the while to learn something? To have some information imparted? And just a few more examples from Thoreau. It is worth the while to have our faith restored by seeing where a river swells and eddies about a half-buried rock, dimples on the surface of the water. Isn't it wonderful to think? You just imagine your faith is restored. We all can picture that, right? He said, it is worth the while to walk in wet weather. The earth and leaves are strewn with pearls. Strown, S-T-R-O-W-N. Spell check didn't like that, but that's what Thoreau wrote. And he said, if by watching all day and all night I may detect some trace of the ineffable, then will it not be worth the while to watch? And one more. It would be worth the while to attend more to the different notes of the blackbirds. Methinks I may have seen the female redwing within a day or two, or what are these purely black ones without the red shoulder? And he was such an observer and found it worth the while to observe in terms of life spent. Now, there are plenty more examples where those can't come from, but something else, importantly, I could talk, I don't know if he ever said it in so many words, but he lived it. I could talk for a long time about the ways in which Thoreau found it worth the while, not only to be present in nature and so on, as we've heard, to notice things, but worth the while, for example, to spend the night in jail for refusing to pay his taxes that were supporting slavery and an unjust war. And worth the while, whether he wrote it down or not, we saw it, worth the while, too, with his family to host a stop on the Underground Railroad, and worth the while to speak over and over again against slavery and for abolition. Saving and savoring. Savoring and saving. Enough of Henry for now. Rather inspired by Henry, I've been finding it worth the while to reflect on what's worth the while, what has been worth the while in my life and in my ministry, what still is worth the while, what might continue to be worth the while, and also to reflect a bit on what might be worth the while for you, though that's for you all to determine at Old Ship in time to come in your next chapter. But first, a few things for myself. It has been, is, and always will be worth the while and then some to hug those I love often and to tell them often I love them. It has been worth the while in my life and in my ministry, and always, to do my best to give full attention. I haven't always managed it, but to do my best to give full attention to each person, whomever I'm with, a dear one, a friend, parishioner, you, a store clerk. It has been worth the while to listen to stories of others. Yours, the store clerk, briefly, maybe, whomever. It has been worth the while to read books, to learn from ancient wisdom, to learn from reflections on current events or history, to be healed by the beauty of a poem, or simply to be transported by a novel into some other way of looking at the world, experiencing the world. It has been, by the way, or not even by the way, it was worth the while to learn how to play the guitar and the banjo. Yes, for my own pleasure, but so that I can lead us all in this kind of setting, or with little kids or with elders, in singing together. It is worth the while to sing together, isn't it? And it's been worth the while to engage in, you know what I'm going to say, conversations about things that matter. I've said it so many times, and we've engaged in it, the richness and moments of illumination when many minds begin to think as one. Never ceases to astound me. Why should it keep astounding me? It always happens. And never fails to inspire me, what may come from it. I have found it, and I expect I always will find it worth the while to rise early. Well, some days it's not worth the while. Sleeping in is good too, but most days to rise early and appreciate the dawn of a new day. Each sunrise, a unique show, a free show. It's a beautiful thing. Similarly, worth the while to pause and pay attention to the setting of the sun, another free show as the day begins to dim. Indeed, worth the while, of course, to pause at just about any time of the day. Have you been watching the play of light this morning, and sun coming in and out of the clouds, and sometimes you get the reflections up there, I guess not this morning. Depends on the season. Or the falling rain, we might have a little bit of that later. Or the storm, gentle or fierce. And sometimes not do much of anything, which might turn out, in the spirit of that first reading, to be of great use. And it's been worth the while for over 5 decades to really get myself moving each day, as some of you do. I run, some people walk, but to move, and best of all, to be in the woods, in the forest bathing, people call it these days. To breathe out life-giving carbon dioxide for the trees as they breathe out their life-giving oxygen to me. What a lovely exchange. And worth the while as I run along, maybe to spot a deer, or more rarely a fox or a coyote, or a spider web in between some branches dappled with, sparkling with dew. And as much as it has been worth the while, and always is and always will be, to savor the beauty of this world and of one another, just as Thoreau did, it is surely also worth the while, individually and all of us together, as Thoreau also did, to be of use, as we heard in the second reading, in our efforts, small or large, to save the world, to save this beauty in the midst of the climate crisis, to save the lives of others, a can of food in the basket, whatever it might be, to speak up for voting rights, reproductive rights, LGBTQ+ rights, and on it goes. So I have found it worth the while, as have many, if not most of you, to march and rally for a good cause, as Daveline reminded us many did yesterday in the March for Life. Worth the while to support as best I can and vote for candidates I think just might make a difference for the better. Worth the while to speak up and speak out. On this, our Pride Sunday, I affirm that it has been worth the while here at Old Ship. More than worth the while for us together to be speaking up and out for LGBTQ+ rights and people. It was worth the while to work together as we did more than 2 decades. How long ago was it? To work for equal marriage rights, because we'd already worked so hard to become a welcoming congregation. Worth the while again today to side with love in this house that might spread the love in the face of hate, knowing, as I've said this morning, that we are not alone. There is more love out there than hate. Hate can do too much damage, but there's more love than hate. And others, as I've said this morning, of many faiths are with us. The theology barely matters most of the time. It's the love that matters. All you need is love, as we heard reflected in our chalice lighting. All you need is love. All you need is love, love. Love is all you need. It is stronger than hate. We need to companion love with our hands and hearts to go to work for love, but it starts there. These are challenging times in which we live. I hardly need reminding any of us. Let me affirm as I draw toward a conclusion this morning that it is worth the while to embrace these challenging times. We can't change them, want to change them. Can't change this moment. Challenging times are what they are. We can embrace the challenge as we do in our personal lives. It's the only way forward, to embrace it, not to just wish. We might wish, that's normal, to return to a previous time of imagined stability and calm. That's normal. It doesn't help in the end. Rather, seeing that it's worth the while to seek opportunities in the face of what might look like disordered chaos. It might be the case here at Old Ship, the feeling of disorientation as we move towards building a new parish house, as you welcome your new interim minister, as we try to regrow our religious education program and so on, in the midst of challenging times in our nation and world. But we will only discover opportunities wrapped in these unsettling times if we seek them and then grow into a new and beautiful era of our congregation, this ancient parish. And in the midst of many transitions, even a certain degree of disorder, it will still and always be worth the while. Of course, I'm speaking to our congregation now, in the spirit of much that I've been saying this morning, to pay attention to each other, as you so beautifully do, to support each other, to have those conversations about things that matter. You don't need me for those. To pay attention to the beauty, the downright miracle of the world. It's astounding, this world. The way a bird can make its way through those branches. I've never seen one hit a branch. Yesterday, I was looking outside the back at the pause of the day near dinner time, and there were squirrels playing high in some branches. One of them lost its grip, fell about 10 feet and caught another branch. I couldn't have done that. The world is a miracle. Pay attention to the miracle of the world, the earth, and all that's in it, so that we might be moved to save the beauty, to save this world, to save each and every human being and all beings. As we put our hands and hearts together, I'll be with you in spirit always, always, to help heal this wider world in whatever ways we can. But you know all that. Just thought it might be worth the while to say it out loud this morning. May we each then, in our own lives and in our shared lives, be encouraged and inspired by Henry David Thoreau's reflections. Remember, his worth the while night in prison, a century later, inspired Gandhi, inspired Martin Luther King. You never know where what we do might ripple. So may we consider what things are and are not worth the while in our lives in this congregation in terms of the amount of life they cost. So may it long be, blessed be, my friends, and amen. Flames lit with love. And the love is everywhere, just as the smoke goes everywhere, so does our love. The flame of our faith, well, the candle burned down already. That means that faith is all the more out in every one of our hearts. May we carry it with us and bless the world. Bless the world. We get to sing together one more time. We would be one. Number 318, one of my father's favorite tunes, Finlandia, and these beautiful words, number 318, we would be one. My friends, we are one. May we look around and notice how deeply bound together we already are in this world of ours. Here in this meeting house, everywhere, we are one. May we live as if we knew it, reaching out always with love to bless the world that are with the blessings that are part of our lives. And so our worship is over. Our service continues. May it long be so. Blessed be, and amen.